my understanding with the ECB paper, at least in particular, is like historically they've been saying like, oh, Bitcoin is tulips, Bitcoin's, worthless. Like, why are you buying Bitcoin? And then this one kind of like was a shift in sentiment from their perspective where they're like, wait a second, like Bitcoin's going up really fast. This is unfair. Like now all of the early adopters are benefiting from it in a quote unquote unfair way. And this is not, basically this is just isn't fair. And it's like, it's kind of a weird argument because like if you knew this was going to be the case, you should have bought Bitcoin. And like you can still buy Bitcoin. Like it's still like if you're right about it, like if it's going to keep going up and it's going to benefit all the early adopters, well, like 99.9% of the world has not adopted Bitcoin. So like if you buy some now, you will be an early adopter and benefit greatly. And then I think also like one of the things they included, which I kind of agree with, is like they say like the Bitcoin and like broadly the crypto community is like effectively somewhat lobbying the government. Like there are people that want to make sure that Bitcoin rights are protected, and like you can self custody your Bitcoin, you can buy Bitcoin. Maybe there will be like beneficial taxes towards Bitcoin one day if enough constituents in the United States like want to remove capital gains tax from Bitcoin or something of that nature. And I've kind of been saying that over the last year or so, is like I think a lot of people that are in the Bitcoin community, which is obviously still a very, very small percentage, but Bitcoin is kind of like a single issue voting topic for them. It's like on that list that you mentioned earlier for the broad population, no one cares about Bitcoin. No one cares about crypto. It's like the ECB writes this paper and they say it's unfair, but in reality, like most people, they don't really care. Like they don't think about it. And so like no one really hates Bitcoin except maybe the ECB and like this random person at the Minneapolis Fed that wrote the paper. And still, like I don't even know if they necessarily hate it. They may read their paper and be like, you know what, like if the government's not going to ban it, I should probably buy some Bitcoin, and then they're going to be on Team Bitcoin. So like I think like at the end of the day, there's going to be an exponentially growing small percentage of the population that owns Bitcoin and is going to vote for whatever candidate and potentially even donate money to whatever candidate is going to do the most for their Bitcoin. It's same with like the S&P 500 at this point. I mean, like most people are not going to vote for the candidate that's going to tank the economy and have all these companies collapse and have everyone lose their jobs. Like everyone is on the number go up train for the S&P 500. Soon everyone is going to be on the number go up train for Bitcoin. It's kind of the same idea. Once you realize that you shouldn't have your wealth necessarily in the S&P 500, you should have your wealth in Bitcoin because it's a better long-term store of value. And so Bitcoiners are going to become more importantly this like single issue voter constituency. And that's going to be really good for Bitcoin because again, no one, if you're not into Bitcoin, you don't care. If you're into Bitcoin, you care a lot. And so effectively what that means is like every politician is going to have to be pro Bitcoin because you get nothing by being anti Bitcoin because again, the 99.9% doesn't care about Bitcoin. And then the elections are decided by a very small percentage of people that may not even necessarily go vote. And so if you can attract the pro Bitcoin people by saying, hey, I'm going to start a Bitcoin strategic stockpile and the United States government is going to, buy a lot of Bitcoin or whatnot, or at least, protect the right to self-custody or other things, that's going to be really good for Bitcoin. And like, that's going to be something that might actually encourage Bitcoiners to go out there and vote. So yeah, I think like that's kind of an interesting outcome that the ECB has mentioned that I kind of agree with. It's like, yes, like people are going to care about Bitcoin. People are going to want the number to go up. And that's going to be good for Bitcoin. And like, it's going to make governments and politicians kind of respect Bitcoiners and like kind of appeal to what Bitcoiners want. And I think the nations that don't create Bitcoin friendly policies are going to lose a lot of Bitcoin. There's going to lose a lot of Bitcoiners. And Bitcoin's easy to move, right? Like that's one of the major advantages of Bitcoin. It's highly portable. Like you can send Bitcoin from New York to Tokyo in, a couple hours paying $1 worth of fees, and you can move $1 billion. If you own $1 billion worth of real estate in New York, you're not going to be able to necessarily move that around the world. So real estate is going to be subject to property taxes by which you pay annually. Bitcoin is not like that. Bitcoin can easily move to a different jurisdiction. So jurisdictions are going to have to encourage Bitcoiners to come to them. And then hopefully those Bitcoiners will slowly deploy some of that Bitcoin over time into the various local economies. So yeah, the ECB paper and the Fed paper were interesting, like the high level abstracts that I read. But I think like they're kind of at like the capitulation stage where they're like, wow, like maybe the Bitcoiners were right all along, and like maybe this is going to be a big deal, and like we need to think about it more.
What do you see, in this 10, 20-year time horizon when it comes to, will there be the two currencies, the dollar and Bitcoin, kind of ascending to like, hey, they're kind of ubiquitous, or like you can use either, or like, what do you see when you kind of look out into your glass ball over the coming, epochs, in the coming decades here?
If you want the answer to that question right there, and you like that spicy clip, check it out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. But if you want the full interview in its entirety, all the spicy clips put together, and you're not going to want to miss it, believe me, then check that out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. Do it.